Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
You're listening to the podcast, So There I Was. This is episode 58 with Kemo. Folks, first I have to apologize up front. The sound quality on this one is not the best. I made an error in settings during recording and recovered as much as I could, but it's not up to our standard. We hope you'll look past that this week because the stories are great. And I do have a new system for getting excellent sound to you going forward in the future. So this should be the last show with tough sound. On a couple other admin notes, we have a Patreon page to help us keep the engines running. So thereiwas.us/Patreon. If you can step up and become a pilot on So There I Was, we greatly appreciate you helping us defer all the expenses of keeping this show coming and the great stories coming to you every week.
Hey, we have a store to get cool gear. Hats, tees, polos, koozies, mugs, beach towels, even a bikini. So there I was.
I had to have fun with that.
Right? Oh, if I could wear a bikini. So there I was.us/merch.
Some things you can't unsee and some images you can't get out of your head. Thanks a lot, Fig. Hey, listen, we're doing a show swap this week, too, with the Jordan Harbinger podcast, which is an amazing show, and we're going to talk more about that during the show.
Hey, let's not forget why we're here today. Kemo. He's back.
He is. And this show is titled The Hammer of God. Right out of the gate. The Hammer of God.
Right. And, it's typical Kemo. He shows up doing 600 knots and he never slows down. And if you can watch it on Rumble, you'll see what we're talking about. His hands are moving. He's shooting his watch. He's got great stories. Killing a cow. This has become a theme. Killing livestock. Have you noticed this?
It's become a bad theme of our show. We've got to stop these animal murderers.
Right. Let's see. Listen, there's some hilarious, there's some tragic, but it's all great. So don't sit on the ejection handle, buddy.
Don't do it.
I really appreciated that.
Here's Kemo.
I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fun.
So there I was. It was a Friday afternoon on an early 2003 Top Gun graduation 1v1, the show to end all shows. And let's just say it was me, Goon 1, against the Hammer of God.
That is awesome. We can't wait to hear more about that. Go on, Vic.
The Hammer of God. Well, so welcome to So There I Was. Obviously, that is how all great aviation tales begin. And we have a repeat guest who didn't get a chance to get all his stories in the first time, and I'm really glad he's back. Kemo. Welcome back, Kemo.
Thanks, Fig. Thanks, Repeat. Happy to be here, guys.
Where is my co-host tonight?
Guten Abend from Cologne, Germany. I'm here tonight. Been here on a nice long 3-day layover, having an absolute ball at Weinwacken, which is the wine walk, the festival down the street. So that's been a lot of fun as well.
Oh, my.
There's always a festival here in Germany. It's good stuff. So, hey, a couple other things, though. I want to take care of a couple admin notes this week. First of all, for those of you who don't know, you can go to sothereiwas.us/Patreon and help support the show. Thank you especially this week to our 2 new patrons who are supporting us and helping bring this show to you every week. Sal Marinello, Semper Fi, brother, and Peter Robinson. You're helping keep the engines running, so we really appreciate that here. Back to Kemo and the Hammer.
All right, you got it. Okay, so now my spidey senses are on edge. Okay, so let's go through this. Walk us through this.
I don't know if they do it anymore because I'm old, and we used to have a lot of fun back in the day with regards to Top Gun and the instructors having a good time on their graduation 1v1 day, which is like their last Friday before everything was done. And just a quick summary of how it works. Everybody kind of pours into the ready room or the briefing room at Top Gun, and it's incorporated with the invites went out to not just Goldwingers, Air Force guys, Warbird dudes. When you'd walk out on the ramp, you would see everything from a P-51 to a MiG-21 to a MiG-17 to just Eagles and Hornets and Tom. It was crazy. They were there kind of for show. The civilian guys kind of just did this fly through, but it was there to provide a sense of not confusion, but what's going to happen today? Who could I fight? It's always possible. Any one of these guys I could fight. And the way it would work is you would get an envelope. You'd sit down and they'd hand out envelopes. And on the red side or the bad guys side, I was in the F5 at the time. Our call signs were Goon. and I think the other guys were top gun, whoever. So we get our envelopes, and everybody get an envelope, blue and red, and you'd open it up, and you would have a waypoint and a frequency, and a time. That was it.
Wow.
And the way it started was just a big show-off thing, and everybody would do their high-performance takeoffs and whatnot. And we'd get out to the working area, and you'd go to your spot. You'd check in on the frequency. Theoretically, the other person would be there, and you would say fight's on, and the person that wins out of this 1v1 scenario gets to do the shit-hot carrier brake, transonic as close to super as possible, and the loser had to fly and report the initial approach mix to the high tack end back to the station.
Oh, okay.
It's embarrassing.
So that was the thing. And so everybody was like, God, I just don't want to do that. I don't, whatever it takes. And so
I don't want to be that guy.
For us, it was a guns only, no missiles, pure up.
Right.
How well do you fight kind of a thing.
Savage.
So I think so. It's kind of fun that way because you take all of the toys out of it and you can actually see who can do what better with regards to 1v1 basic fighter maneuvering and dogfighting. So I get my frequency, I get my waypoint, and I launch, and everybody launches randomly. So you could take off 20 minutes prior, 10 minutes prior, right before, or whatever, and you kind of go to your waypoint, get on the frequency, and if it's ticking down, get a little nervous because I'm in a pretty old airplane, the F5, and I know it's going to be a Hornet, an Eagle, or something. And we've got our bags of tricks, and I'm excited. So I check in at the appropriate time, and I basically say something like, hey, Gun 1's checking in. Standing by, ready to play. Nothing. Crickets forever. So I call back to Top Gun base. And usually when you do that, it's a time to fuck with the guy. So I put on my best, red accent, and I was like, Top Gun base, this is a Gun 1 checking in. Looking for my opponent. And they're like, stand by, Gun 1. What's the matter? Is he scared? Huh? I'm going nuts. I wrote up there, and all of a sudden, finally, like, Gun 1, this is Top Gun 1. The hammer of God is on his way. And I was like,
Ruh-roh.
I did a little thing on the radio. And at the same time, I'm like, holy shit. Okay, so it's probably going to be a Hornet. We'll see what happens. Anyway, so he finally shows up, and we proceed to check in. He finally checks in, fights on, and all I can do, as an F5 guy, my whole job is to be sneaky because I don't have all the toys, the radar and whatnot. So I dip down to the lower part of the deck, and I know where he is, kind of, because I know the airspace because I grew up there.
You know what direction generally he's coming from.
Yeah, I know which way he's coming from. So now I'm just trying to get my ADF to work, right? I'm like, hey, I'm having some radio problems. Can you give me a radio check? Hey, what's the problem here? It's like I got at least get a direct, beacon direction of where he's from. Like, okay, he's over there. So all I know is it's like I will be defensive at the merge. It's no problem. But in the F5 world, I could say they taught us very well, and I think it's just a function of the fact that we're in a substandard airplane to have an amazing lookout doctrine so that we can pick up people and whatnot. And so you kind of have this countdown. He's like, all right, well, we're at 20 miles. It's been 30 seconds. We're probably going 400 knots, this, that, and the other. He's probably about there. And sure as shit, I pick him up, and he's swinging my wing line, and I kept the speed up. Anyway, we get into the merge, and we start.
What kind of airplane was it, Kemo? What kind of airplane?
It was a Hornet. And it was a graduating Top Gun student. It was Hornet, fleet guy, really good dude, but. It's very boisterous, and especially he's got about coming up on 90 degrees on me at the merge, and you can see his fangs are out, and he is just bleeding, and I take it over, and we get into a pretty much a top part of a roller that goes into a flat scissors.
Okay, so I hate to do this to you because the story's moving good, but I need you to slow down. I need you to slow down and tell people what the merge is and what kind of merge it was and kind of what a roller it is. And then one other quick note, as long as I've interrupted, don't shoot your mic with your hands. All right.
For anybody that's not watching this visually, you are missing out on a show.
He's going to get airborne if he moves his hands any faster.
I forgot my watch.
He's
got his bulletproof watch.
He's got his bulletproof watch. All right. Sorry.
Let me back up. No, it's fine. And I thank you for recaging my brain on our audience. I apologize. So the merge that we have is an air-to-air term to basically define how airplanes meet as they oppose each other. So they can have, and what's interesting is we teach training rules that require us to have a minimum of no closer than 500 feet left to left or right to right when we pass each other. That's that merge as we get to where there's basically a 0-0 line, and then we start fighting. Typically, for training rules, it's about 500 feet, and if it's wartime, you try to make it 0 feet. And the idea is to basically dust them off and scare the crap out of them as you make the pass happen. So that's kind of the merge. And my merge, you want to try to have a 180 out pass, as in you want to have it left to left as straight as possible because there are no angles. Yeah, you're completely neutral and there's nobody that has an advantage. In this case, I knew I was going to have a late pickup on this guy because I didn't have a radar. And as I picked him up, he was at my 10 o'clock, swinging about my 9, and he's just pulling. So as the merge happens, it looks like this.
So he's already got his nose, pretty sure bring his nose to bear on your tail already.
Right. So my goal was knowing that I was going to be in that position, not that bad. Knew I was going to be in that position was to keep the speed up. So as I saw him, I started to turn, but I just kind of eased off and just kept the speed there. So I just let him just dig. And he got 90 degrees on me at the merge. So he's basically has 90 degrees to go. I'm defensive, and I've got probably 270 degrees to go. That being said,
he's got a good-looking sight picture, but he doesn't have the speed left.
He's got a good-looking sight picture, but I know we're guns only, so I'm not too worried about any missiles at this moment, which is great. It's like back to Baron von Richthofen in the days of revolvers.
Okay.
It was wonderful. So as I see him just bleed to take this shot, I'm at 400, 450 knots, and I just literally just take it vertically, and I just watch him not make it, and I come over the top, which is now this roller, which is a vertical maneuvering fight that occurs vertically. We're both going around and around in these eggs, and we call it a roller because it's kind of like a roller coaster. But you could convert that into other fights. So as I make it to the top of mine, he's coming up. I immediately reverse, and we get into what's called a flat scissors. And the flat scissors is where it's a one-circle fight where we have merges between high and low aircraft, and the idea is to be the first guy to either get behind one of them or behind the other aircraft and shoot or not. And
you're trying to get the other guy to fly out in front of you.
Yeah, you're trying to get the other guy to
slow down as much as possible and let him fly out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And
so it's a Top Gun maneuver. You put the brakes on and he flies right by.
Well, right.
Oh, wait, no?
Did you put your feet brakes out?
Yeah. So I was fortunate in, as an adversary guy doing the sniper stuff and all the bad guy stuff, we dogfight all the time as compared to these other guys. So we really get to learn, how to we learn about our jet. We know our jet. It's like a pair of jeans. We can take it to a very extreme point in the aircraft where if you weren't that proficient, you might not. So I think that Baron von Richthofen had a saying or a quote in his journal, and it said, "The size and quality of the box matters little. What matters is the man that sits in it." And it's a function of, you could have a substandard airplane, but if you could fight and this other guy can't, it doesn't matter. And so anyways, as this goes, I'm able to flesh him out. And it's funny because there's some boisterous talk as we're going through this stuff. It's like, oh, better look out, just standard chest beating,
talking smack at each other. Nice.
As we're fighting. And he makes the mistake and he flushes out in front of me. And as I come back around, I'm like, oh, this is going to be sweet. And I literally, because it's just error capitalization. And so as he comes back around, I kind of, the professional thing is to say trigger down, snap, pippers on, tracking. Not now. This is Top Gun graduation. So as he's coming by, I just kind of go, pew, 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 and then he reverses. And I'm like, just a little more. Let me do it one more time. And so I get it 3 passes, and I say, that's a kill, knock it off. And he's like, knock it off. I'm like, dude, I'm not going to let you do the high tack. And we had a great time. Just get on my wing and let's go rip it back through the pattern. So I took him back in the pattern. We took him into the shit hot carrier break for the winner's circle, if you will, and it was a great time. But it was kind of fun because, we had a very overconfident Hornet driver that picked on a guy that got lucky, a little bit luckier in his old F1.
The hammer of God.
Yeah, who'd have thought? We got to the bar at the club after it was all done. I'm like, dude, you're telling me I crushed the hammer of God?
That's awesome. That's a great story.
So.
Yeah. So, but you talked about knowing your aircraft so well. The question I have, did you know it so well that you remembered to keep both your throttles on at the top of your vertical fight this time, or was that...
Thank you, Nikki.
Sorry, I had to.
That reminder. Yeah, that was
Whoops.
a bad story. Do you want me to go into that again? Because that was no.
No, we got you.
Stuff can happen.
Yeah. But that being said, it seems to me you might be responsible for an extra steak or two out there who's, you might have killed a cow. Is that what?
Oh, Jesus. I did. So this is back in the day when men were men, and the word, the bottle to throttle rule was advisory in nature.
No drinking within 50 feet, right?
Yeah.
That's
No
right.
smoking within 24 hours, no drinking within 50 feet.
So when I first checked into my squadron, VF-31, one of the best fighter squadrons in the nation, we had an event up in Fallon, Nevada, and I was a NAVCAT, as you know. So I checked in. I was an ensign, JG. I don't even know. I think I made lieutenant before I checked out. I'm not sure. Either way, I'm the junior kid. And so if you remember Fallon, with all of the things that we did out there, this is before
Some of the best flying on the planet, but other than that.
Absolutely. We went up there for S-Sparps, air to ground, this, that, and the other. Tomcats are dropping bombs, et cetera, et cetera. We have a great time. But the typical all-officer meetings that we've had that would typically be in a ready room when in Fallon would be at Salt Wells or the Mustang Ranch. Because they had a very big ready room type of place with beer that was very, very inexpensive. And it was cheap beer, so the skipper...
Very cheap.
Like, hey,
what I remember.
Salt Wells, AOM, 1400, whatever. And we go there. This is before Salt Wells. I think Salt Wells is no longer. I think it burnt to the ground, and it is no longer there. Last I checked, but I think it was like 4 or 5 double wides connected behind barbed wire fencing, and that's my first time there. And you kind of
pretty fancy.
Yeah, and it goes, and you open the door, and you're like, "Is this to keep us in, out? This is kind of scary. I don't know." We get to the bar, and the Mama San's there, and the squadron shows up, and hey, you can't beat $1 pitchers at a pool table. So
no, you can't.
You can't. So we have our AOM there, and as we do this, we, by the way, are talking about the next day's events, and skipper stops, Possum looks at me and says, "Hey, Kemo, you got the skipper watch." And I was like, "Roger that. Don't we have a 6? Shut up. You got the skipper watch. Make sure that we're back for the brief at 6 a.m. I'm like, "Yeah, okay, roger that, sir." Well, we proceed to get utterly shithoused at this place. I have a great time. We stop at, remember the casino that had like 5-cent craps? I'll get it in a second. But it's not there anymore. But we went there.
I think that's the one that Ivan Putski broke a toilet at. I could be wrong.
Oh my gosh, I think you're right.
I'm talking about.
We had a squadron mate. Ivan Putski was his alter ego, and he was standing on a toilet in the casino one night, and it might have cracked literally in half. It was time to bug out after that.
Yeah.
Hey, so you get the story. Basically, we get back to the base at the queue at about 2 a.m. for a 6 a.m. brief. It's a 4-plane division, 4-ship, whatever you want to call it, ingress, opposed, low-level route, up north, back down south into Bravo 17 for a live drop of probably just Mark 82s. Nothing too big, but we all had a bunch of Mark 82s, and we're going to do this thing and go. So we have this whole mission planned. Luckily, we planned it the day before. And we wake up, and we're walking to the jets, and all of us are just in the standard mental state of preparedness. We start up, we go, and we had, luckily, Link 16, which was JTID's very secure comms. So we had a little thing going. And so everything is cool, other than we all feel like shit, and we take off. And the route, if you can picture on a map, Fallon, Nevada, just go east for X amount of miles, go north for a ton, back over, and then back down. We're going back into Bravo 17 to drop a bunch of bombs, and the time on target is this, X, whatever it is. So we're taking off, and in the Tomcat, it was just like the Viper, where you can kind of go, all right, so I'm going this fast. Here's my fuel flow. You're going to make it to this waypoint based on your routing at this time. And I'm looking, and I'm -3 on this battle box formation, which is basically 1, 2 on the top forwards and 3 and 4 in the back portion of a box formation going into the route. So I kind of look at my stuff. And I'm like, hey, one, I can't remember his call sign, Sluggo. Hey, confirm time on target. And it's like, well, it's X. And I'm looking at it going, dude, we're like 5 minutes late. This is because we're totally not where we need to be. And I'm like, well, one, we are freaking late, dude. And all of a sudden he looks at me and he's like, no, you hear him. He's like, no, we're not. We're Tomcat's gate. gate means afterburner, which means let's go because we're late. So he advises all 4 ships, hey, Tomcat's gate. So we launched. I was dash 2, that's right, because my buddy's behind me, so to speak. And he is looking at my airplane about a mile back and said, dude, the coolest thing I ever saw was an F-14D GE motor going to full afterburner because the glow was so amazing. Even at just inside of a mile, it was crazy. But so we just start going, and we realize that we can't do this entire route and make the time on target. There's just no way we're going to do it. So as you know, ACMI pods are the tax range. Yes. We have the ability to make sure we're emitting or not. So we make a great call, which I think to this day stands to record as being a great call for improvising, adapting, and overcoming. Our lead goes, well, we're not going to go that far. Gents, circuit breakers off, hook left. We're going through that fucking valley right there. And it's about halfway through the entire route. So we basically cut the route in half and we come back around, which is fine. So we go there. We meet up with the opposed adversaries at the time that didn't realize where we were. So we destroy them and we get back on our route with about plus or minus a minute now. So we're like looking good, but we're still about a minute to go. So we're like, dude, Tomcat's gate. So we're about 500 feet, and the rules of supersonic flying in Fallon is weird because it's like 11,000 MSL is your floor for supersonic flight.
Okay, that's above mean sea level.
Yep. Yeah, but mean sea level, but you don't realize that there's terrain that that doesn't adhere to that. So there are points where you shouldn't be supersonic at 11,000 feet. That being said, it's the first place that I actually got to see on my HUD 910 knots at 500 feet.
Oh.
If ground speed. We got to make time on target. So, and I've never experienced at 500 feet. So the tunnel vision you have of just going so fast.
Oh yeah.
That altitude is just amazing. So I'm looking at my wingman. I'm looking at the HUD. I tell my backseat, I'm like, dude, this is kind of cool. He's like, what's up? He's like, I can barely see anything. It's kind of neat. We're going so goddamn fast. And then I realized we're a few miles to go. We're catching up to time on target. We're going to make this thing straight. And all of a sudden, as I kind of look over, look forward, I see this little green speck go to green square and gone probably within a half a second. I'm like, oh, somebody live there? I don't. Whatever. I don't know. So let's keep going. So we go and we pop over and we drop our bombs, shack attack. We're within 30 seconds. So we're like, that was pretty good considering 5 minutes.
Yes.
Woo-hoo. So we're very happy. We land and we're supposed to debrief at the Nautic Commanders headquarters or NSOC or I can't strike back in the day, you know.
Yeah.
Big auditorium, tax is playing. And they're not flag level, but I almost flag level people running around. What the shit? How could this fucking happen? I can't believe we need to find out where these people were. And we're walking and going,
yeah,
yes, right? It's not a problem.
No.
So we sit down in the big briefing room and our skipper comes out and he goes, I need to know exactly where you were for the routing. It's like, well, skipper, you got our brief. Here's our route, A through whatever. Okay, great. So here's the funny part. With your tax pods, circuit breakers pulled, obviously there's no emission. So they only can see us on their ATC radar sweep or whatever, which is once every 30 seconds. I don't remember what it was. It was pretty slow back then. So when you're going 910 knots ground speed, they get a blip on one part of the Earth, and the next thing you know, there's like another blip, you know, way far from that first blip. So there was no ability to really correlate where we are. Thank God. Basically, we had this report going, and there were pictures shortly after. That little square that I flew over at 910 knots ground speed, which is about 1.6 Mach, in a Tomcat at about 500 feet.
Oh, shit.
You rocking.
With bombs on board.
Yeah, there's this picture to this day, and my wife still has it, and I'll tell you why my wife still has it. But it's a single wide trailer that is literally kind of off kilter just a little bit. Every window is blown out, and every domestic animal, including this cow, is on its side with its legs out. I mean, probably from a heart attack, I don't know, but everything is dead in front of the trailer is a mess. But allegedly, we don't know to this day necessarily who did this.
Allegedly.
So luckily, the legal officer of our squadron was able to help make that all go away. Roll forward about 3 months. My wife's a nurse at the hospital in Fallon, and she's working with this woman, and something happens that brings up Navy pilots, and all of a sudden she's like, "Oh, goddamn Navy pilots! I hate those guys! Oh my God!" And my wife is like, dear God, what's going on? She's like, they killed my cow. And my wife was like, this wasn't, this date around this time, was it? Yeah, how'd you know? I was just guessing. So she called me. Like, hey, remember that cow you killed? Yeah, what's wrong? Like, I'm working with the owner of that dead cow.
Oh.
And I was like, maybe it's all good that they paid her off. She got another cow. She was still very upset.
Well, yeah.
I never thought I've dropped some bombs in the desert, but I've never said I've been able to kill cattle with a tomcat and a pressure wave. So.
And now you have.
And now I have. And so, in a way, I feel like the what is it? The time between accident and event to now is
statute of limitations is going. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Statute of limitations is over.
I think we're good. So I'm in full admission mode with you guys right now. So.
But you became the hammer of God.
You were the hammer of God for
that day for that cow's purposes. Oh man, poor cow. I hope they got some steak out of it at least. But
I don't know. But it was a terrible picture. I mean, it's like there's no way that was me. But
who took that? Where did this picture show? Where did you see this picture?
It was kind of like a CSI crime scene post-incident. The NCIS.
They went out, took pictures of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then they came back with the photos, and I was like, oh, wow, this is terrible. I can't believe this happened. Who could have done such a thing? We have to go. Luckily, there's a lot of not being able to confirm nor deny, and I can't say that it was me, but I just remember the green patch, and so over time, it all correlates and triangulates back to our event, and it is what it is. So I'm sorry with the cow, but I'm sure the Navy gave you some money, and I'm sorry.
And then your wingman Bluto, what happened next?
Oh God! So Bluto's that's an unfortunate story. I didn't have a. You have a lot of friends who went through flight school, but not a lot for me that really stuck out as really tight. I had a good handful of dudes, and Bluto was one of the guys out of flight school that really we got pretty tight. He was in my sister squadron VF-11 when we were getting ready for cruise, and they called him Bluto because he looked like Bluto from Animal House. You know what I mean? Just a blonder version of it, but he could shave. He could shave every hour, and he would still have that shadow.
Yes.
And we had a great time together. This is back when beer first started becoming important, like for people that made it, like craft beer. And so he started making beer, and he was like one of the newer guys. I'm like, why, dude, let's just go to the store and get some beer. It's like, oh yeah, I made this raspberry IPA, and I'm like, I don't know what that is. But so we'd go over to his house and we'd drink all this great beer. So he was into that. That was kind of the era. This is like 1994, 95. And so, anyways, to get to that story specifically, we were getting ready to go on deployment, and whenever the cruise ships or the destroyers or whatever need missile profiles and can't get the contractors to do it, the Tomcats would step up and do missile profiles for the ships. And because we could be hella supersonic, and at the end of the day, we would fly, do a nice supersonic flyby of the boat, of whatever boat that was, and so they loved it. And that's really what it is. And it was a very basic mission. So me and Bluto were going to take off and point our noses at these ships and go crazy fast so they could do their training on how to handle incoming missiles to a ship. And that was that. This is the start of the era. It's been on your show before of the GE-110 motor and how there were issues with afterburner and burner blow through, all that kind of stuff. So we're in that era, but this is different than what was before in a way. But regardless of the systems that malfunctioned, we had me and Gauze and Bluto and Scooter in these aircraft, and we were doing this missile profile. And I finished mine, and I came overhead him, and we were going pretty fast. So he's probably going about 600 plus knots, as he's passing by this ship. And as I'm watching him, he's going to fly by this ship, and he's going to join up on me, and we're going to go back to the boat. And it was as simple as that. So I pull off I do my flyby. Yay. I kind of pull over. I see him with his ship about 500 feet above him as he's going by the ship. And I'm looking down at the ship and the flyby. And I'm like, well, that looks pretty cool. It's kind of cool. And all of a sudden, this plane explodes and starts cartwheeling And I'm like, my first question was, why the hell is he salvoing his flares? That's I literally had nothing to compare it to. It was just the most surreal thing.
Yeah, the last thing you're thinking is a guy's jet's blowing up in front of you.
Yeah, and this was like, it was so fast. It was like there was like hey, you're on. I see smoke. Hey, slow down. It was like boom,
bang,
that fast. So as he passes the ship, the whole thing just explodes. The wings, I see cartwheel. I see two smoke indications of what I think are seats, and I'm looking over the smoke, going, holy shit. And so I finally get out of what is that? What could that be? To realize, wow, this just happened. So here's the twist a little bit. Gaz, my backseater, and Scooter, the backseater of the other aircraft that just blew up, are like the best of friends. They are shit. So there is literally screaming in the back, literally a hysterical person that I can understand as to why, because my buddy is in the front and I don't know.
Yeah.
So we basically coordinate SAR, and we wait until they get there. They relieve us and we go. And I know I'm going back to the boat. We're not really blue water ops, but we're close enough because I've spent enough gas there to where it's like we're going back to the boat, and that's it. Luckily, it's all good. And
sorry. What's blue water ops?
Blue water ops is where you have no divert or alternate airfield or boat. So you basically have the carrier, and you have a whole lot of ocean, and you're either going to land on the carrier or you're going to float in a rubber taco until a helicopter picks you up. So that's your choice. So that's blue water ops. Blue water ops is always something that you get used to, but you hate because you realize you got one spot. So please nobody foul the deck. Please nobody do anything stupid. Let's all get on the boat. So I check in and I hear 99 modeless recovery. And I said, oh, thank God. Because one, it's a guaranteed okay pass. But two, it means that there's a little bit of pitch and deck, and the landing signal officers are controlling the glide slope of the recovery process of your aircraft manually by his eyeball, where he's putting the meatball vice, a normal ILS-ish Fresnel lens 3-degree glide slope that you would see automatically compensating for sea state, right? So, but as this is happening, I got this guy in the back seat just literally, and I'm not giving him shit. I mean, he is hysterical. He has literally lost his mind. And I'm like, guys, and this is where I kind of sit there and go, thank God the Tomcat didn't have flight controls. I'm so happy because you can sit there and do whatever you want back there, and I don't care. I said, guys, man, I either need you with me or I'm going to turn you off. And you can do your thing, but I just need you to you're going to be with me for this arrival or you're not. So,
yeah.
Okay, I'm fine. Oh my God, I can't believe it. Like, okay, it's off. You're off. I'm done. So I come back basically just on my own, and we land, and it's horrible, man, because that happened. And as we land, the SAR helo's landing as well. So we chain up and we go over there as close as they'll let us, so we can see that they are just a big old mess of flail injury, just a total. They're done. And here's the other twist.
Ouch.
The information that came back to the boat. So they were ready 7 and we were ready 8, which are the ready rooms of our operations below the flight deck.
Okay.
Somehow the messages got crossed, or the wires got crossed, and everyone thought the guy that exploded was me. So and no one's paying attention to the plat, the screens, or nothing. I land, I get undressed and I get in the ready room, and it's like everybody saw a ghost. And I was like,
a ghost walks in the ready room.
Yeah.
Holy!
I was like, what? And they're like, dude, they said it was you. I'm like, no, it's Bluto, type of a thing. And then I walk over to Bluto, and that's when they're pissed because that's not Bluto walking through the door, and they totally get it. But it was such a terrible, terrible situation. And we got back. Luckily, I say luckily, I mean, he didn't have any kids. He was married to a great girl that has since been remarried and whatnot. But it was pretty rough. And to this day, I mean, there's still nothing that'll make me cry like immediately, other than the flyby missing man formation post funeral of your bro. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And there's nothing worse than that for me. And so I've only had to do that a few times. I've had to do it a few times, but that's the hardest.
That's
part.
rough.
So that's what happened to Bluto. And he was an academy guy. And every time I see, my daughter went to the academy as well. So whenever I go back and we walk, I'll see his name on the wall. and it's just, there's always a toast to Bluto. So he was a really good man, and I'm really glad I could share that. I wish I could share more of the things that he did more than the incident that happened, because he was a really good pilot and a really good guy, a leader, officer, and so that's that.
Well, that was that correlated to that engine, having that engine problem.
So you had, so it was like right in between, in the midst of them trying to figure it out. And after that happened, they basically, we deployed with no afterburner. We had a restriction on the use of afterburner except for operational necessity, as in, like, you need it to not get any slower so you can get out of bad guy land because you're getting shot at. But otherwise, there was no afterburner use whatsoever because of all of the incidents that happened. And they finally cleared it out once we got back from cruise. So,
well, we've talked to
couple guys been on,
two different F-14 pilots on this podcast that gave one back to the taxpayers because of that motor.
Yeah.
Fire.
I mean, I wish I could remember his name, his call sign. Comet. Did you talk to Comet? He was the guy on the Discovery Channel.
No, but
we talked to the guy watching him.
We
watched it happen though.
Yeah. We were in flight school, and that's the thing. We went to flight school together. It's crazy. Oh my gosh. But it's crazy times, man. I can't tell you. I mean, because I sit there, my wife and I sat down at the bar, and we're like, "Baby, we're out of fingers and toes," as we all have, with our brothers that have bought it, and
absolutely,
it's just so crazy.
That's the terrible part. All right, So that was, I'm assuming, before you experienced it. I've got a note here about a hydraulic failure you had.
Oh gosh, that was in the Tomcat. It was actually a pretty fun one. This was on our way to I can't remember if we go to Hong Kong first out of Hawaii, or if we go to like Seoul. Anyway, we're heading that way on the Westpac, and we're in between Hawaii and our next port. And of course, we're training and getting ready. Gotta stay prepared. And we go off on some launch. And you have to forgive me for my knowledge of systems on the Tomcat because it's been a while. But you basically have two systems, and you have a bidirectional pump it's kind of like a pump that's interlinked that can kind of help. If one fails, you got this other thing to help kind of manage the other system. Either way, you got it's a standard thing for any plane. You got one system that's like gear related, the other system that's like flight control related. We take off, we're doing this thing, and it's a big exercise, and all of a sudden, master caution, hydraulics. I look down. I hate my life right now. Hey, Chunx. Chunx is my backseater. It's like, we just lost the left side, which is our hydraulic side. I can't remember if that was, they call it the combined side. And then we had a flight side.
Partial gear, partial flight controls, maybe?
Yeah, stuff like that. No, all I knew is I was like, well, I'm going to have to manually drop the gear. Flaps are going to be either stuck or locked back. And we're going to be fast coming back to the boat. Either way, it's like we immediately knock it off. We start heading back to the boat. Ask for an emergency pull forward, which is the code words for basically get everything away from the landing area because we're coming in and you're not expecting us because they're waiting on their cycles and whatnot. And it was, I'm going to call it slightly uneventful, other than the fact that it's probably due to just my naivete and immature. I want to call it immaturity, but just to me back then it was like,
is it your lack of experience?
Yeah, it could be. I didn't know what I didn't know, so I was like, well, the plane's flying. I'm not too worried about it. Chunx in the backseat, I was like, holy Jesus.
Hey, Kemo, was this daytime or nighttime?
Daytime, thankfully.
Okay.
Thank God.
All right.
If it was nighttime, I tell you what, it was I would have had probably a different attitude. And so was
Chunx a lot more senior in the squadron?
Yeah, he was.
Of course, everybody was more senior to you in the squadron, but that's
everybody was. He was a senior 03, so not an 04, but a senior JO. Good dude that had a lot of experience in Tomcat compared to me. And so that being said, it's kind of funny because I kind of am glad because as I look back on it, I look back and go, wow, maybe you should have been a little more concerned. But I think my lack of concern allowed me to just kind of do that pilot shit, and just get it back to the boat. But so as we do the emergency pull forward, the hydraulics are gone. It's very hard to fly. It's not. It's the stick is much stiffer. You don't have a lot of the power steering, if you would, when you have hydraulics, and so I wouldn't call it just basically cables and maneuvering devices, but it's pretty much that with no hydraulics. Kind of like your dad's truck that you had back at the farm, but the hose to the power steering popped off, but you still wanted to go meet the girl, so you're going to drive it anyway, and it's just like you're trying to make these turns.
Yeah, right.
That's what I had. And I'm like, so once you got it on center line, it was okay. But it was one of those things where it's like, we don't want to go around. So luckily I was able to get it lined up and on the ball. And I just let it settle into that one wire nicely and set the hook and caught it. And so I kept it at centered ball until I saw that ramp going. I just went, fuck it. And I pulled the pedals back. Went to idle, and it shot it right back in the middle, and let the plane stop, set the hook, pull the stick back, felt the hook hit, and oh my God, I was just the happiest guy ever. And as they chain us up, the canopy comes up, Chunx comes from around, and again, I sit there like, I'm kind of tugging up going, hey, was it that bad? And again, now as I mature through the aircraft, my years in the squadron, I sit there going like, dude, that was kind of a big deal.
yeah. It was good. You didn't really know, right?
Yeah, I'm glad I wasn't that knowledgeable.
Hey, this is a related question, but not really.
Sure.
This is just for me. The sweep on the wings, was that hydraulic as well?
Yeah, it absolutely was. So luckily, as soon as you started slowing, so if you were going fast, right, the wings are back, and they're relative to Mach with regards to where the sweep was, 25 to 63 or whatever it was.
All right.
So luckily, that was one of the part of the procedures. We just slowed down, got the turn coming. The wings are coming out. Once they were out, we left them out and kept them in that configuration because, if they were stuck back, and to get them manually forward, at the further back you go, the faster you got to be. And,
right.
And I think there was a situation in the pocket checklist that basically talked about if your wings are somehow stuck aft in that 68-degree position or something. It was like this ridiculous airspeed. Like you had to go to Edwards Air Force Base, like just go over there
in order to get it stopped.
In order to
29,000 foot runway or something they've got.
Like 220 knots, And so something you never thought would ever happen. And the Ds were so new that all I cared about was, the hydraulic issues were there, but we didn't have the issues like the A's do with compressor stalls and losing motors and things of that nature. But the hydraulic systems were still the same, So
yeah.
So it was what it was. But
well,
so
I'm glad it worked out that way.
Yeah, it worked out great. Better lucky than good, I always say.
Yes, every time.
Minimal skill, luck and timing.
So you spent some time in the Air Guard.
I did.
With the tacos out of Albuquerque, right? So
I did.
Can you just back up and kind of repeat now? You did your obligation on in the Navy. Is that when you got in the Guard, or how'd that work?
I did. It's kind of funny because when I went to an adversary squadron, which ends up being a reserve squadron in the Goldwing world, even down at Yuma. And so you check in with people who your skipper works for Delta, and the OPSO is an American guy. There's a FedEx dude. So it was a very strange world. And there are very few people that were hard-charging guys that want to go to Top Gun, go back to the fleet and do this stuff. It was, the SCIF, or this Secure Compartmentalized Information Facility room at our squadron had like the 3-1 tactic stuff, and the rest of the room were binders on every airline in the world that was hiring at the time. And
with all the gouge. Yeah.
Right? Now that's top secret.
yeah. So I walked into that going, okay. So anyways, so I get on that track. I'm like, okay, this probably sounds like a good deal. I'll stay here as a reservist and I'll join the airlines. And okay, that sounds great. So in the process of doing that, there's a lot of people also rushing, quote unquote, the Guard, which I didn't think about too much. Yeah, there's Air Force dudes that are at air shows and they fly these jets, and you're in the Guard. And I never followed the Guard process, and I kind of got talked to about how cool it was. I'm like, okay, cool. And it's essentially cool. You kind of go, hey, you can live here, you can fly these jets in your backyard, and you deploy every once in a while, and you come back and you're home and you can live at home and fly these jets. It's like, okay, great. And I'm a New Mexico guy, so I was like, well, shit, I'm going to start taking a look at the Guard. And I had a couple of buddies. It was an A7 squadron when I first knew them, and they transitioned to the F-16. So I had a bunch of A7 dudes, and my wife was an Orty or a bomb bunny, or I don't know what they called them in the Air Force, but she was one of the Orties that kind of did all the bomb stuff. And so,
was she in the Guard? Was she a Guard?
She was in the Guard. I met her. Yeah, when we were in college together, she did that for GI Bill and all that other stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
So she's like, yeah, it's great. So I kind of check them out. So I already know some people, and I rush them. And at the end of my Navy commitment, they offer me a position there to go fly the Block 30 and Block 40, mainly F-16. And I'm like, that sounds great. This is wonderful. Now, caution on story. I don't realize, truthfully, there's all this talk and bullshit banner in my whole career about Air Force guys and Navy guys and Marine guys. We just give each other shit. Right. But
yeah, because the Air Force and Navy deserve it.
That's right.
especially the Air Force.
That's right. Well, yeah, and you know, right? Shit. So anyway, I'm like, I don't realize this until I go, and so luckily I've got a Marine Harrier guy, I've got a Navy Hornet adversary guy, and me going through the transition F-16 RTU RAG thing at Kelly Air Force Base. In Texas. And let's just caveat all of my story by saying all the dudes are awesome. I really like the dudes. It's more of the policies and processes that are so so amazingly different. So I have no idea about this, and I'm just the Navy guy. So I'm doing what I normally do, and so are my compatriots, the three of us in this class. Where when we come back to Kelly, it's like, hey, whatever our call sign was, 3 miles to the initial request carrier, and the tower goes, oh, that's approved. And I go, roger that. And I put my foot on the throttle and I push it straight through the firewall and I go as fast as I freaking can and brake. Yeah. Right? And so,
at 800 feet.
Yeah, absolutely at 800 feet.
Yeah, because that's the altitude for the carrier brake.
Exactly. And so I drop it down to 600 AGL on downwind and come back around and land. And at this, I did a flight. And so the OPSO or something's running out there, to the right. So, and I'm getting out. I was like, what the fuck was that? And I'm like, what the fuck was what? I'm literally like, I have no what you're talking about.
It was a landing. What, was I too slow?
you know that Air Force regulations require no more than 300 knots at 1,500 feet. Now, you were well lower than well faster than that, mister. Yeah, what do you have to say for yourself? I'm like, that is correct, sir. I asked for the carrier brake approved by Tower. I executed the carrier brake as the carrier brake would be executed and landed safely. And he kind of was like, that is not. It's like, and of course, I'm like, it doesn't say that I can't do that anywhere. I didn't know I couldn't do it.
Right.
Well,
here's the Air Force rule. It doesn't say you can.
You can do it, but you can't. Yeah, there's the rub.
There's the start of my Air Force Air Guard career. I'm like, what is going on? So then we get in this other sortie where it's like, okay, we do this thing, whatever it is, and we're like, hey, we got some extra time. Let's burn some gas. We'll come over here. Let's do some stuff. Okay, we're done. Let's go back to the base. Well, it turns out that we land. No, I'm not kidding. No more than 15 minutes late than our scheduled land time. Like we're supposed to land at 1400. We land at 14:15. I don't know what it is, but that happens. So we land, everything's fine, and we go. And in the Air Force, or at least for us, you go to whatever it is, and you have to debrief what you did every sortie, and then you go undress, and then you go debrief yourself, and then you debrief again. I'm sure. Right. Anyway, so as we debrief, the squadron commander's there, and he's like, and I'm not the flight lead, but he goes to my blue-blooded, born and bred Air Force flight lead captain. I think it was Stoner. He's like, "You're 15 minutes late. We're talking about this," and that's it. I'm like, "The hell is that?" The next morning, I show up and I'm like, "Hey, man, what's going on?" And he's got the brick, so he's the soft, right? And they made him soft for the week because he overflew his land time by 15 minutes for our sortie. And I was like, "Dude, you got in trouble for overflying?" He's like, "Yeah." Matter of factly, yeah. And it's like, did we affect the next wave of flights? He's like, no. It's like, yeah, because we had like 2 hours between the next turn, right? What's the big deal? So he's like, That being said, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've overflown my land time. Right? Yeah. I don't even know what my land time is. That's like, we have to take off at 6.
Hey,
Mm-hmm.
And usually it's
we
like,
only
I
have
don't.
so much gas. I mean,
We'll be back when we're out of gas.
Right.
Until
And
then,
so it's like, what else is going to happen? I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm used to. So that happens. I'm like, holy shit! They basically grounded Captain whatever the hell his name was for a week, put him on the duty with the brick, because he overflew his land time for 15 minutes. I was like, wow. So now I'm kind of got this going. Oh, this is getting kind of weird. So then I get back to my squadron. And we're doing an LFE. We're talking LFE. We're talking like mega planes joining a tanker, going to the Uter, which is the Utah airspace up there by Salt Lake Hill
hold on.
Air Force Base.
LFE.
Large force exercise.
Boom.
And-
That's a new one. Repeat.
Yeah.
bunch of airplanes. Yep, bunch of
of
airplanes.
airplanes.
BOA,
BOA going to the MOA.
military ops area.
Right? So we go. And
I hope you got their PDQ.
That's the PDQ part is the issue. So we're
Right.
taking off, and I realized that we're a little late. I mean, you can tell there's some issues with somebody on ground ops, something with admin issues, and we take off about 5 minutes late. But with all of the ATC issues from where we are to get to the tanker to get to the Uter, as we're going to the tanker, it's clear that we're going to be late for our appointment on the tanker track. And so the flight lead, and there's like 8 of us, like just strung out. and the F-16, like I said, you can say, hey, here's my waypoint. If I move the throttles, it dynamically shows you based on your fuel flow, time to waypoint, and then burn and things like that.
Right.
And
Pretty
they're
cool.
like, we're clearly late. We're not going to make this. We're going to cancel and turn back. What? Dude, we all have like 2 Mark 84s and then Lord, it's a ton of stuff. It's like, I said, can't we just go faster? It's like, we're not going to make it. I'm like, dude, I'm showing, if we set 800 pounds, we're going to make it to the tanker like a minute late. He's like, that's late, isn't it? I'm like, yeah, but it's a minute. We can make this happen, man. Let's make it happen. And so it was just, he elects to finally make it happen. We get to the tanker, and it's like, yeah, we're still going to be about 2 minutes late. Dude, let's go faster. You're flying at 8.2. Let's go 9.8. and worst case, we'll bingo into Hill. I mean, it's right there. I mean, but again, it's that whole thinking outside the box.
Yes. Well,
The box. This isn't mixing up with my matrix here, so therefore we're done. I don't even know what this means, but I can make it. Let's go do it. You know what I mean? It's a totally different mindset. They're very good at execution. You know that. They're very good at what they do. But it just seems like when things go a little sideways, it gets a little weird. Whereas I think it's always weird. We're always off script. Nothing ever goes to plan. Everything's fucked up, and we always make it happen because that's how we grew up.
we're flexible.
So
Air Force has no flexibility.
No. And so once we finally get him to finally go, okay, fine, we'll go, let's go faster. We make it and all that kind of stuff. That's great. Between our tanker track and the Uter is Moab and, John Wayne country. And my buddy, OB, not the same OB, there's 5,000 Marine Corps OBs that fly the Harrier. This OB, he looks at us like, man, it's on TAC. It's our aux freak, our backup frequency. Yep. And he's like, wow, this is God's country. This is so beautiful. And I'm about ready to go click, like say, amen, brother. It's just something because it's so gorgeous outside. Flight lead comes out and says, who said that? Click. I'm like, there's not going to be any extraneous comm on communications on our mission. I was like,
oh my gosh.
I was like, what?
Well, there already was. Who said that?
Who said what? So we land, right, and we're at Hill, and we're finally debriefing this huge exercise after we finally get to Hill in one of our sister squadron spaces, and he starts in with that, and my OB, the Marine's about ready to I'm gonna rip off his head and shoot down his neck. I swear to God. And he starts into this. I'm like, whoa, hey. And they almost get to blows over this whole extraneous comm because OB said it was so beautiful outside. So this whole thing is me going, okay, maybe my choice to go to the Air Force wasn't the best idea in the world. So as this happens, more and more things happen. And I finally go, I'm done. Because what happens is I call in sick to a sortie. And my wife is like, what did you just do? It's like, I just called in sick. I'm not going to make it. It's like, you realize that that's the first time in X amount of years of me being with you as your wife and as a tactical aviator that you've ever called in sick. You've never called in sick in your life. You go ears bleeding to a sortie in the Navy. I was like, wow, you're right. So I walked in that day and I walked into the ops group commander, the deputy, whatever that is. And I kind of said, sir, I need to quit. And he said, what? It's like, you can blame it on me for call me a squid, call me whatever it is, but I'm not having fun here. I'm going to go back to the Navy. And he's like, what are you talking about? And it's like, boss, you have taken one of the coolest airplanes with the
squeezed all the fun out of it.
and it's sucked the living fun out of everything I could possibly imagine. And he just looked at me like, I don't understand what you're saying. And this is the point. So
I like to have fun. I'm funny.
I'm a people person. Can't you see that? Yeah. And I was like, so I quit. And I did the process of going back to the Navy after that. They went back to the Navy, thankfully, and went back to my adversary life.
They take you they take you back with open arms.
My bros were all about come on back, and the leadership was they didn't want to have anything of it. But luckily,
Quitter.
Luckily there was enough support to get me back in, and I was able to get back in.
Good.
Oh, that's awesome news.
Hey, Repeat, have you listened to the Jordan Harbinger show lately?
I have, and I am loving it, Fig. The guests he gets on the show are fascinating.
Absolutely. I especially like the episode I listened to last with David Packhouse, the real-life gun runner and the inspiration for the movie War Dogs.
Oh, that was a great one. But I'll tell you, for me, Terry Crews was a standout. I met him on a layover recently, and he was a super nice man. He's a genuinely talented actor and comedian, and boy, was that fun to actually get to learn more about him after meeting him.
Dude, that's awesome. That's the beauty of the Jordan Harbinger show. There's something for everyone. He dives into the minds of fascinating people, from athletes, authors, celebrities, scientists. I mean, it's huge.
It is, and he's got a talent for getting his guests to share never-heard-before stories and insights. It's always thought-provoking.
Exactly. Without fail, he seems to pull out tactical bits of wisdom in each episode, all with the purpose of making you more informed and a critical thinker.
Absolutely. And point blank, Jordan Harbinger is smart, funny, and easy to listen to. You'll be hard-pressed to find an episode without excellent conversation, a few laughs, and actionable advice that can directly improve your life.
So, for all of our So There I Was listeners out there, don't miss out on the Jordan Harbinger show. You can search for it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you use the URL jordanharbinger.com/start, you'll get some special bonuses.
That's right. The Jordan Harbinger Show is a top-shelf podcast named Best of Apple in 2018. So don't just ignore our suggestion to listen to this like you probably do with your other friends who tell you to listen to podcasts. Just don't do it.
You can't go wrong with adding the Jordan Harbinger Show to your rotation. It's incredibly interesting. There's never a dull show. Search for Jordan Harbinger Show. That's HARB as in Bravo, IN as in November, GER, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
So I want to hear about Paco and the knife fight death roller that inspired Top Gun 2. Might you have something to do with that?
So Paco
and the knife
fight is one of my most favorite pilots to know, be friends with. I knew him post operational tour when he showed up to the Saints as a reservist. Man, oh man. I think originally he was an A6 pilot, and then he went to the Tomcat, and unfortunately not the D. He got to experience all things shitty about the mighty Tomcat A, and survived to talk about it. Anyways, a great American who does a lot of stuff now on the side aviation-wise, but we were very intimately, how do I say this? We had a great relationship in the sense that we were good friends, but we loved to challenge each other in the air. And it was typically through, the challenging was like, hey, would you like to try this tactical procedure? It was more like, are you ready to go, bitch? Because I'm going to kick your ass. And it was like,
Let's go.
Guns only? Yeah, let's do it. And so that's kind of how it starts. And in Fallon at the time, before the land of everything now 21st century, you could finish the flight schedule, and it would be, call it 1600 on a Thursday afternoon. You're like, fuck, everything's done. It's quiet out here. You want to do 1v1? I don't know. Let's go see. And you call mate. It's like, hey man, you got jets? Could we throw a couple jets on the schedule? And they literally be like, yeah, sure. You got 01 and 05. Okay, cool. Brief. So adding on the flight schedule, doing shit like that was very, very normal. And so
was the brief SOP?
Yeah.
Any questions?
It was yeah. That was pretty much it, dude. At the point, because you flew with each other so much that you knew SOP. You're like. It was like, okay, brief. Questions? Roger that. And we'd go through training rules. We'd go through out of control flight procedures and this, that, and the other. And we'd walk to the jet and we'd go. And Paco and I got to a point where we flew together a lot, or we did this little, hey, let's go, you ready to go, bitch, kind of thing a lot whenever we were together. And it was nothing ever bad. It was awesome. But we always pushed the envelope to where we talked about rollers and pirouettes and things before, those fights that I would get involved in. But it's because of Paco that I got so good, because he pushed me and I pushed him. And remember I told you about that 500-foot bubble, right? We always had this training rule, imposed 500-foot bubble. And once again, parentheses, statute of limitations are here. So fuck it. I'm going to tell you what we did, because I think it was actually good, because, when you go through training in any capacity and you have rules like, hey, you have a no lower than this, or you have no closer than this for ranges, you train to that. You're used to seeing that. But when you get into war and you go into combat and you realize that 500 feet is space that I can capitalize on.
It's turning room.
It's turning room that I could achieve. I've never seen that before. I've only seen 500 feet. Everything else inside that is like, oh, this is bad because it's a violation of training rules, where it's like, actually, no, it's not bad at all. So off the record, Paco and I would push it closer and closer and closer. And the best parts of it were we'd start off normal, but the fights would get tighter and tighter and tighter, to where that one scene in Top Gun 2 where Mav kind of rolls over Rooster's like, you see me now? We never did that. But the departure from that into that death spiraling roller was something that Paco and I did all the time. And I looked at my wife, I'm like, Jesus Christ, that's Paco and me. They took that. We could sue. And that's all alleged bullshit as far as I'm concerned. But Paco and I would literally get in these knife fights and the knife fight, or the phone booth as we call it, are these, what you saw in the movie, there's these death spirals where you're just kind of going in this crazy ass tight circle. And there's two objectives. One is to flush the other guy out. Two is, where am I? And you want to get to as low to the deck as possible with the right amount of energy to come around and shoot the dude. Hopefully. So that being said, as we would start these maneuvers, it got to the point where we would literally look up, and I remember vividly on one maneuver, Paco was on the other side of this fight, and he literally raises his hand, and I could see him do this.
He gave you a salute, huh?
He's fighting across, he's looking at me, he's like, and I can see his finger, and I don't realize
that's
how
close,
close
bro.
that needs to be, right?
Yeah,
and
that's
so I'm like,
close.
Yeah.
So as we're doing, it's like, dude, did you just flip me off? We're fighting. He's like, fuck you. That's what it was just supposed to be everything. So as that happened, we did it a lot. I mean, it was not all the time, but we knew when we got into it, and we pushed each other hard. And it was just one of those things where we knowingly violated training rules to basically keep ourselves. To me, it was wonderful, because we knew our limits. We would never do that with anybody else. But at the same time, it's good to see what that looks like, so that if it were to ever happen, of course,
That's
now.
not the first time you see it then.
Not the first time you see it, right?
There's an old saying, right? Train like you fight, right? Fight like you train, train like you fight. Because if you don't train like you're going to fight, you're going to fight like you train, and you're going to get your ass handed to you.
Yep.
Right.
And I can tell you this, the first time I got busted off, I'm in the Tomcat D, and I'm cocky as shit, because I just killed this adversary pilot in Fallon. And I was like, boom, boom, boom. And I'm like, fuck, hey, hell yeah, you're dead. Let's do the next set. And I can tell he's pissed. And his call sign's Pager. I love him to death. And it was literally like, he pulled the PC SOP training rules world circuit breaker. He was going to make sure it never happened again. And so we had our first pass. We come around, and this guy comes so close to me, I literally stopped flying. I was like, left to left, and I'm like, Jesus Christ. And I stop, and as I stop, I'm like, oh my God. I watched the guy behind me come around and shoot me, knocks it off, and like, okay, we're done, let's go home. I'm like, going home, like, holy shit. And that's when I was like, wow.
Yeah.
That's that turning room we're talking about that I think just we can't touch. But
Right.
he touched it, and holy shit, scared the shit out of me. Kicked my ass, well deserved.
Well,
Nice. That is awesome.
I think I've told this story before. I don't know if I told it to you about the guy, the Top Gun aggressor flying the F5 out in Fallon, and we were in that spiral like you're talking about, and we were really tight. I could almost read the knee board that was strapped to his thigh. Well, I noticed that he was putting out some smoke, and I'm doing everything I can do to just stay neutral.
Yeah.
Well, we got down to the deck and knocked it off. Well, I remember when we go to the debrief, and we got to that, we were started to debrief that particular sortie, and I go, oh, yeah, hey, by the way, I saw some smoke coming out of your, like some extra smoke coming out. And he goes, oh, yeah, I flamed one out, but I got it relit. So he was fighting me, flamed one out, went through a relight, meanwhile, didn't give an inch. It was all I could do for it. All I could do to keep him kicking my ass.
That's awesome, man.
In one motor. Awesome. And it started with two. Yeah.
So you're saying we were neutral and you had half an airplane?
Right. Yes. Exactly. Yeah, my ego went.
Oh.
Yeah. There's that.
We get time for one more story repeat?
I think we just might. Yeah. Had a keg in your back seat. Had a good combat sortie. Life is good. You pressed a heavy, huh?
I did. It was pretty interesting. So as a NAVCAD, this is one of my most rewarding stories, only because I'm blessed with the skill of luck and timing. I mean, I do my best to be excellent and seek excellence, and as we all do, right? And most of the time, it ends up being excellent because it just happened, and you didn't fuck this up, and luckily you made this work, and it all fell together, right? And so that's kind of been my life. And we're in Iraq, or we're in the Gulf, and they're planning for a strike the next day, and somehow it just gets into the whole. So I'm like setting up. I'm initially like -2, and I'm setting up the board, and we're getting everything together, and I've got it. We as Tomcat dudes, you kind of deploy and have your backseater. You have a crew. You work together the whole time. You don't like flip flop and like in the airlines where you have like, who the hell knows who I'm flying with today? It's you have a guy, right? Paired crew. So I'm set up the board, and then my skipper walks up. He's like, Kemo, this is going to be your strike lead checkout. I'm like, okay, that sounds great, sir. Whatever. Let's set it up. Yeah. So I'm going to be one? Yeah, you're going to be one. Okay, so I've changed some names. And then CAG walks in, who is unlike, I'm sure Marines might have had the mustaches of the day, but the walrus kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So CAG walks in, and he's kind of like, hey, what you doing? Playing cards, And we're playing for the strike. He's like, hey, Kemo, I'm going to fly in your back seat. You cool with that?
You have to say what a CAG is.
Repeat. Drink some water.
Drink some water, bro.
So CAG is the Carrier Air Group Commander. He is the 06 or captain / colonel in charge of every squadron attached to the carrier, from the E2s to the S3s to the, in this case, every Super Hornet. But basically, CAG has ownership over every squadron in the carrier battle group and typically flies with one or two of the squadrons. In this case, our CAG, Ham, was an amazing man. To this day, one of my most respected people I've ever met as a mentor and whatnot. But he was our CAG, and he was the backseat of Tomcat, so he flew with us, most part. And so he walked in, and I'm sitting at the board. He's like, hey, Kemo, I'm going to fly with you in this strike. And it's like, okay, yeah, no, in your seat, in your back seat, you cool with that? I'm like, absolutely, sir, that'd be great. And he walks off, and my backseat looks at me, and he's like, good luck.
I just want to tell you both, good luck. We're all counting on you.
Yeah,
right. We're all counting on you.
Like, right. Dude, come back and help me with the board. He's like, dude, I'm out. I'm not flying this sortie. I'm going to make some popcorn and watch you flail on the brief. I'm like, thanks a lot. And I'm a JG. I'm an 02, a first lieutenant in anything else other than Navy. And I'm getting my strike lead checkout or qual. So I'm like, I'm cool with it. I mean, in the sense I've done this before, I could set it up, but I'm just not ready for it in the sense of this guy now, the head dude is sitting in my plane, and we're going to go do this thing with 5 other squadrons and roll forward 12 hours. Boom, I'm in the ready room, and I'm briefing a filled ready room of every squadron and every airplane that's going on this flight. And it just kind of hits me going. And so I need to back up because I still use this in the Sims to this day. But so I'm setting up the board after all this happens, and my skipper walks up to me. He's like, "Hey, Kemo Sabi, just so you know, man, you're doing a great job. Don't fuck this up." And he walks off, and I'm like, thanks, skipper. Fuck. So I'm like, literally, God damn it. Anyway, so I set it up. So we briefed the next day, and everything we launch, we tank, we go, and it is surreal. I know that I'm good enough to be the man I am with the squadron I'm in, and I'm respected and liked and ridiculed equally. I'm not the best. But somehow, by some act of the gods, I am hitting the tanker, the track, we're going, we push, time on target, we drop bombs. I'm like, what the shit is going on? It's amazing. I mean, we get bombs on target. We come back, we get to the stack of the ship, and this is where it gets great. Because CAG kind of knows me. We ride motorcycles when we're back home in San Diego, blah, blah, blah. So he knows who I am, and it's professional. There's nothing, other than that. So, but we come back, and we're in the stack. And in the stack then, I'm sure it could change, but in the stack, we had the Hornets on the lowest, and then it was the Toms, and it kind of went up to like the E2 at the top of the stack. And, you watch the deck, and as you're watching the deck of the carrier, the job of the lowest part of the stack is to break the deck, as they call it, which means basically go to where you can go into the overhead, turn downwind, come onto base as the jet blast deflector is going down. The optical lens system turns on, and you trap. That's the goal of break, and it's all timing and experience, really.
Yeah. So I hate to do this. But you got to. But again, a lot of people aren't pilots, so I know what the stack is. I know what the deck is. I know what the jet blast deflector. Can you?
My apologies.
No worries. Just break it down for those who aren't. So, because this is fascinating stuff, whether you're a pilot or not. I mean, it's pretty cool. It's a ballet in the sky to bring airplanes back aboard a carrier. It's fantastic coordination beyond anyone's belief.
And I'm going to miss half of all the cool shit. But thank you, repeat. So the stack, when you go to the stack, it's kind of like it's like going in. It's like the holding pattern, as you're going into an airport. We're like, hey, we've got this delay. You need to hold over here, and they put you in a stack in 1,000-foot intervals. And in the airline world, I guess, or the commercial world, you'd probably be stacked by just whenever you get there. You're going to be the next guy above the other guy. Whereas in the military or in the Navy for the carrier, you had the Hornets at 2,000, the Tomcats at 3,000, the A6s at 4,000, the S3, whatever it was. There was a stack. You knew your altitude, and you had lookout doctrine to kind of find your other bros and kind of get in the circle above the carrier. And you would wait until the carrier was ready, and then each altitude, the lowest to the top, would start to break the deck, which means they would break out of the circling holding pattern and enter the overhead, break, turn downwind to land on the boat. And as that happened, the stack would decrease, and the stack would go down until the last aircraft was recovered. Okay. So in this case, the Tomcats are above the Hornets, and we always fucked with each other with regards to the Hornets being the first ones to go, and then the Tomcats went next. So usually it's like, all right, we know it's these guys. Okay, they're going to go. And as this is happening, and in this particular sortie with CAG and the strike coming back, the Hornets are fucking it up. So I'm looking at the deck, and the CAG's looking at the deck, and it's like, they should have gone by now. I'm like, yes, sir, they sure should have. Flying around the circle. It's like, why haven't they gone yet? So I have no idea, sir. That's kind of weird. Flying my little thing. And I'm finally going, He's like, if you don't do what I'm thinking, you think I'm thinking, in the next 30 seconds, we're going to have a chat. Because I know he's telling me, fuck those guys. Go break
Get aboard.
Because
nice.
when you're in that stack, it is valid and acceptable rules to go, the guy below me just blew this off, we're going. And we can totally blow through the deck and go there. So I kind of look at my wingman, and he does the whole, Yeah, we should. Let's go.
Yeah, what the hell? It's your ass, not mine.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh, fuck.
I'm just a wingman.
Yeah, this is binary. This is zeros and ones. This is going to go
Yes.
one way or the other.
Yep.
I'm like, okay. So we just go and we blow up the horns and we blow through, and I can just see him like look at us going, oh, Jesus. And so we blow through
There you go.
back, and we go in there, and as I'm going in there, I have two choices. I'm like, well, I could go in at 350 to 400 knots and break downwind, or I have CAG in my back seat, and I could go in for the shit hot break, and let's see what happens. And I don't know what to do because I got CAG in my back. Do I show off?
Right.
Do I not? Should I do? Do I maintain SOP? And so
Repeat's favorite question. What could possibly go wrong?
Could go wrong.
So what do? I'm like, I look at my wingman, and he's like, I'm like, fuck yeah, let's do it.
Yeah,
So
let's go.
I just light them up, and we come into the break. And so the best thing to do, and you talk to many people in your show, but you definitely want to break pre-ship or at the stern, right? You want to break right over the LSO platform. And so I get to about 550, 600 knots as we're coming in, and I'm like, well, I've already set myself up for either failure or success. John Wayne on the brake, Pee Wee Herman on the ball, as we call it. See what happens. So I'm like, well, why wait? So I just kiss off my wingman, and I break right over the LSO platform, and I just pray. Please God. I don't know if this is going to work or not, but I've got CAG in the back. It would really be nice if we could just make this happen. So and you have to do a double break because you're going so fast. You pull max G for 90 degrees, and then you kind of extend, get your breath, and then do another max pull to slow the airspeed down because we have to get our wings out and whatnot. So as that's happening, I'm like, and we're timing it. Like we're looking at the ship, and I'm like, this is about right where I think this is good. And as I get to about 90 degrees off, I turn down when I start my base turn to final. I'm like, I have no idea anymore because I've lost too many blood cells to wonder where I am in this pattern. So I'm either going to see a Fresnel lens that tells me I've got some glide slope, or they're going to give me some red lights, and I'm going to go around, and CAG is going to kick my ass. Either way, that's all I got. So let's just go. So
get your grade and keep going.
So by the sheer act of God, dude, I'm not kidding you. I get to the 90, I look out, I'm like, holy shit, the deck is clear. I get to the 45, and I'm like, maybe this is going to boop. All of a sudden, the OLS or the optical landing system turns on. The meatball's there, and I'm like, "Holy shit!" And if you said, "Kemo, how'd you do that?" I would say, "I have no fucking idea."
No, I don't have one.
So I roll out in the groove, and the lens comes on, centered ball. What the shit? A couple of little flicks of DLC, poop, 3-wire, and all I hear is this. Look at that, and that's CAD banging on the canopy, going. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. From that, if everybody did it like that, that was fucking amazing. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, I don't know
what I do.
That's what I do.
And so the whole mission was literally luck, timing, and
And luck.
I was blessed.
Yeah.
I was blessed.
Yes.
I mean, we all have our levels of skill, and we were all capable of doing the job, but to have it all happen.
Oh,
Right.
like perfect, right?
Look perfect, and I get the okay underline 3-wire on that pass from.
Why not?
Nasty,
I mean, why
from
wouldn't you?
Nasty. I think Nasty.
Oh, it was Nasty did? Wow.
No, actually, Nasty was our skipper, so it wasn't him, but he was
Okay.
there in the ready room, and he's looking at me like, "Nice
Yeah.
job, Kemo."
Yeah.
He's got the mustache, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good man. So, anyways, that was my thing. I wish I could say that I did that all the time. That was the one time I could literally sit there and go, I executed flawlessly by the pure blessings of God and the angels around me because I have no idea how that happened.
It was
So
supposed
well.
to. It was supposed to happen that way, bro.
Right?
I got two quick questions.
Yes, sir.
You used a term. I don't think we've heard it. DLC. A couple clicks of DLC. I mean, I know what it is, but would you talk about that real quick?
What the hell does it stand for? Basically, DLC, something landing control. So you had a roller knob on your cockpit, on your stick, and that roller knob controlled the spoilers on your wings.
Yeah.
So when you roll them forward, they would trigger the spoilers to pop up, which would basically kill your lift. So the gouge that we had was like, hey man, fly a little high in the ball. It's like just like half a ball high, and set the power, solid power, and then as you come in, as it goes a little higher, you just DLC this thing, which basically kills your lift, but you have power on the jet.
Yeah.
Right?
Keep your motor spooled up in case you have to go around.
If you need to go around. Yep. So you have one thing to worry about at this point. You don't have to worry about the power because it's set where it needs to be. Solid ball. Let's just DLC this thing down. And the DLC was dynamic lift control.
Boom!
Okay. Yeah. Well played, sir.
I like that answer right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Second question.
Okay, cool.
Thank you for that.
Yes, sir.
We're going to go with dynamic lift control. Second question. You made a mention of riding motorcycles with the CAG back in Garrison, back in San Diego.
Yes, sir.
Crotch rocket, Harley Davidson.
CAG was the Harley guy, and I was the crotch rocket guy.
I knew that. I mean, why wouldn't you be?
Because we got a picture of it somewhere. Speaking of which, you got to send us
Yes.
pictures. But
That's right. That's
I
right.
could do that.
Yeah,
I'll
you
send you
owe us
pictures.
more
it
pictures.
was green, wasn't it?
It was green.
Yeah.
It was green with planes, and
Big
CAG.
rocket.
CAG had literally, I think it was like the biggest output Sportster that they bought. I don't know if it's a 1200, but he had the Sportster, the Harley Sportster. So here's me, and there's CAG, kind of go, and we go up to Palomar Mountain or whatever down in Sandog, and they had like a sandwich shop up there, but we do all the mountain roads up there, and
Of course.
And he was the coolest CAG I ever knew. And
That's a great story.
and I had a great time with him. And he ended up making flag, and I lost track of him as our careers progressed. But he was a great mentor in a tactical environment as a CAG, as a backseater. I mean, we always give shit to backseaters, as WIZOs and NFOs. I can't talk to the P3 moles and E2 moles out there. I'm talking tactical backseaters. I mean, they don't know how to fly the jet. They just know where the jet needs to be.
Yeah.
So if they have a lot of good wisdom. And while they don't have I think we have some obviously super guys in the F now that still have WIZOs. Those senior guys, while they might not know how to fly, they've got some experience that can help you out. So
Yes.
and what you had to realize was like, hey, I know you're not a pilot. I know you can't tell me how to fly, but I know you've seen where the plane needs to be. Tell me what that looks like. Where is this plane in reference to the other? And what happened? What did you feel? Okay, I can relate that to how to fly the airplane now. And that's how senior Rios or WIZOs were able to help me fight. They didn't teach me how to fly. They just go between here and the next point, the plane needs to look like this. You make that happen.
Do it now.
Yep. Absolutely. So
Right. Oh, that was funny. I forget who it was. I was teaching at 203, and we had, I think he was a Phantom Rio, and he was at the squadron, and so I took him up on a backseat ride, and we got into a fight, and I'm letting him fly. I didn't realize it. I figured he had a lot of time in the airplanes. He was doing some flying, and he couldn't fly for shit. It was like, he's like, no, I never fly. I just, I'll talk to you about it. Tell you how to get there from here to there and all that kind of stuff. And at one point, and we depart and see that here's the other thing is a single seat mentality, Fig. And you can appreciate this is we did the part and we were inverted. And so we're coming out of the sky like a
Piano.
brick grand piano. And
heard off a tall moose.
yeah. And he goes, you got it? And I'm like, oh yeah. Yeah, it's fine. We got it. But it didn't occur to me to go, oh yeah, I need to communicate to him that we're not in any extremis.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he was wanting you to say it's going to be okay.
Yeah, we're good. Yeah. It's like,
Because when you're by yourself, do you say that?
no, you just, I think it really loud to myself and I'm good to go.
Right.
So,
Right.
oh, yeah.
Well, that was fun. That was a pleasure.
Bunch of great stories, Kemo.
Oh,
Thanks for coming back and joining us, man. That
I'm
was
happy that you
perfect.
allowed me on. I love your show. I love listening to every story that's on here. I got to tell you, to have this venue for us is such a treat because for those that don't have Fig or you, like a house down to talk, it's a great place to kind of sit there. When I listen to you guys in the show, I'm back in the ready room. I'm back in the bar.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Just pilots at the bar, shooting the breeze, telling tall tales, and
Absolutely.
but we've had some great ones.
But I can honestly say, Kemo, no one that we've ever interviewed, other than you, is as animated the whole time.
Well,
Did you shoot your watch? That's the important thing to know.
I
right?
got my G-Shock on. It's still there.
There you go.
Okay,
Good
we're good.
stuff.
Yeah, no.
Good stuff.
Hey, real quick. So Paco made a show called Speed Angels. It's a movie that never made it to the big screen. It was DVD at the end of the outtakes. And so it's like, oh, Top Gun pilots are like the best of the best and blah, blah, blah. And the most important thing about yada, yada, yada is the debrief. And it cuts to us, me and Junk Bonds and Grinder and Paco. We're all sitting around the bar. We are shit-faced. And we're talking about how we fought today. And we're like, yes, on camera. I was like, you're fucking dead, bitch. And all this stuff is happening, right? And I'm like, holy shit, this is on some fucking DVD somewhere. And but it's funny because you talk about the animations, and it's because we're all these professional aviators. Like, yeah, so we all talk in the third person, and this happened. Okay, next slide, And we get to the bar, and we're just totally grilling and giving shit to people, and it's on this, so it's documented. It's on this damn outtake thing. I'm like, oh my god, we're all drunk, we're getting fired. Cag's gonna kill us.
Was Speed Angels a documentary?
It started off as Speed and Angels, Last of the Dogfighters, which turned to Speed and Angels, a story of two people going through the rag and then into the fleet. But if you see a blue and gray F5, I think that was me. And then at the end was the outtakes, and it's just a bunch of drunken adversaries.
I'm going to go right to the end.
That's fun. Yeah, right. Right. So I got one here before I wrap it up then. What happened? I just found this out the other day. I'd never heard of this. Maybe you guys have heard of it or not. That isn't an outtake, but it should have been in Top Gun.
No.
Familiar? Have you guys heard of Darth Vader in Top Gun?
No.
It's so rare. I couldn't believe it, but sure enough. So at the end of the bar scene, when he's singing to Kelly McGillis, it's panning back a little bit. And
this is the original Top Gun.
The original Top Gun, yeah. And it's the scene where he's singing the song that you never close your eyes anymore. Yeah. So at the end of that, they set it down, and as the camera's backing away a little bit, and there's a bit of a crowd scene, you don't notice it because everybody's focused on what's going on in the foreground. A Navy pilot walks in a Darth Vader costume and sits down. It's in the background.
No way.
Wait. I didn't believe it either. And I went, go look at it. It's at the very, and it's hard to see, and it happened. It might be, there's 24 frames a second. I'll be shocked if Darth Vader's in there for 10 frames, but it's in there. It's a blur, and he's in the background, and they didn't cut it.
I'm going to the den right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Put on Top Gun. I'm coming home.
Fast forward to the bar scene.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
That's great.
I was like, that's BS when the guy told me about it. I'm like, okay, so go look for that, the bar scene in Top Gun. So,
all right. We're gonna do it.
Darth Vader. What's it? The ultimate photobomb, right? So,
right.
Oh man,
That's awesome.
So for now, let's start getting our thank yous out there. First and foremost, thank you to Kemo for your service. Thanks for stepping up and staying up. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me, gentlemen. I can't tell you how awesome it is to speak with you and reflect upon my life. It's been a blessing. I've loved every minute of it. So thank you.
Well, we're all a little better now because we've heard new stories from you. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. A couple other things I want to mention. Thank you to Fig. What's that guy's name?
Rhymes with Dave Hamilton. Thank you, Dave.
One. Yeah. So, oh man, exactly right. Dave takes good care of us. He's given us all the knowledge and all the support. He's helped us find sponsors, so we appreciate that, Dave. And this is probably the last time I'll do it because I think we're going to get to the point where I won't be able to do it and be fair to everybody. But I do want to mention all of our Patreon patrons that have stepped up. So once again, thank you very much to Chase Cole, Earl McCoy, Sal Marinello, Semper Fi Sal, and Peter Robinson. Yeah. Check out our glossary page at sothereiwas.us/glossary. Say that 3 times fast. If you get a term in there that we didn't explain to you, let us know. We'll try and get it up there. We have a sothereiwas.us/sponsors page. Just go to sothereiwas.us. There's a tab on there. Click on sponsors, and you can get all those links for all the great deals for the sponsors that have stepped up to help us out. There's a little bit of noise in the background. That ain't noise. That's pure gold. Who's that, Fig?
That's the Dos Gringos.
Dos
The two
Gringos,
F-16 pilots make the Air Force sound good.
Yeah, man.
The only reason why I love the Air Force. Thank you.
Right.
Yes.
Right. We appreciate them, what they've done for the country, and we appreciate that they let us use their music. It's so kind of them to do that. So in the meantime, everybody, until next week, stay safe and check 6.
Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond of all the shit I was wearing on that day. Now an F-16 is cramped enough, but it's even worse with all that stuff supposed to save your life. But we knew there was no way. 'Cause when you're going down the North Atlantic, man, it's over.
What's the song say, Fig?
It's over.
Mistakes were made.